Welcome to In the Loop, Tales of the Blade, where we dive into the fascinating and often humorous history of figure skating. Let's welcome this week's hosts.
Hi, I'm Evie, and I literally cannot wait to talk about this week's topic. I'm practically bouncing up and down with excitement right now. I'm on Twitter at DoublePlots.
Hi, I'm Neve, and I have zero idea what we're going to be talking about today, so I am ready to learn. You can find my Twitter at Riverdance.
Okie dokie. So, Neve.
Yes.
Ready to learn things that you have no clue about? Woohoo, it's learning time.
I am. I've been out of school for 2 months now.
Well, we're going to get you back into that back to school spirit because we're going to learn things.
Ooh.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, because this is only like our fourth episode of this is our new history series where one person explains to the other person a interesting tidbit of figure skating history, and we all can learn some things and hopefully have a bit of a joke about them. So today's episode, this topic actually comes from an article I read just a couple of nights ago. It's an article from the Smithsonian Magazine. It's written by Michael Waters. And it's all about the history of ice rinks.
Ooh.
So, Neve, let's just start this off. How much do you know about, like, how ice rinks are made?
I know about the TCC rink, and that's it. Not to expose myself, but...
Wow. Exposed. Yeah, well, most modern ice rinks are usually constructed like one of two ways. It's for the more permanent rinks like TCC's rink, or, you know, major training bases or arenas where they have permanent ice surfaces. It's usually concrete that's got coolant pumped into it, and then they layer layers of water over the top of that then freezes and obviously makes ice surfaces. And then there are also temporary kind of rinks, ones where if you're going to an event at an arena that does other things that doesn't have a permanent ice surface, they lay out this series of plastic tubing which pumps coolant through it, and then they spray water over the top of it.
Okay.
But obviously this kind of like cooling technology is pretty, you know, not, I wouldn't say new, but it's something that had to be developed over time. So, knowing this, how do you think ice rinks were originally constructed in, like, say, the Victorian era?
The only, like, thing I can think of is, like, lakes in the middle of Canadian winter.
Well, you're not that far off, actually, because the majority of ice rinks that were used at the beginning of the sport were, in fact, outdoor rinks, usually on the surfaces of lakes or ponds. But this, you know, wasn't really a good thing for the sport if you were looking to train to be an athlete, because on average, like if you take England for example, in average 18th century England, there were only about 18 days a year where you could skate, because all the other time the ice wasn't thick enough or it was summer, you know?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, like, logistically now growing up in, like, because Ireland is a lot colder than England, and we get snow maybe once a year, if even.
Yeah. It's very rare that you get a long stretch of days that the conditions are correct for skating.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, if you were a figure skating athlete in the late 18th century, you would want to probably, if you were looking to go places, you'd probably want to move to somewhere with a much, like, colder climate. That's why, like, I know that a lot of British figure skaters used to train in the Swiss Alps, because there were a lot more days where, you know, you could go skate out on a lake.
If you want snow in Europe, you go to Switzerland.
Exactly. Exactly. But there's still the whole problem of, you know, the existence of summer and the fact that there is no way to skate on ice during those months. So obviously, you know, there's only a couple of days a year for most European countries where you could actually go out and skate, because all the other times the conditions weren't correct for the ice surfaces. So obviously there was a gap in, like, the market where something needs to be done, something needs to be created so that people can skate all year round. And so a British inventor named Henry Kirk, in December of 1841, announced that he had created the first ever synthetic ice rink. And this is the first ever ice rink that could be operated all times of year, no matter the weather. If it was in the middle of the summer, you could still go out and you could skate on it. You know, this was a really big deal.
The London heat wave.
Just in the middle of the London heat wave, go out, go skate on this fake ice. And I say fake ice because really it wasn't made of ice. Okay, let's have a guess. Have a wild stab at what kind of ingredients they would add to make this fake ice. Something that would be suitable for figure skating on top of.
You're gonna hate me. The only thing I could think of is like gelatin.
Well, I mean, you're not that far off, honestly. You're like a couple steps to the left of what was actually used. So this is what Henry Kirk, he tried to emulate the feeling of ice, actual ice, using a mixture of materials, and included in this mixture were salts, copper, aluminium, and hog's lard. Literal hog's lard, like the fat from a hog, in this ice surface to make it slippery enough to skate on.
Who is sitting in their kitchen one night saying, "Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll make some fake ice using hog's lard."
Obviously, Henry Kirk thought that. Here's your ice rink. So, ingredients: 30 to 50 feral hogs. I'm not even doing that. That's bad. That meme is dead.
Please.
It's such a bizarre thing. And you know what the crazy thing is? The fact that this apparently worked really well. Like, people actually went to go, when he opened the Glaciarium, which was the first ever artificial ice skating rink in the world. When it opened to rave reviews, and people kept commenting about the fact that the ice was really good. Like, they could skate as easily as if it was real ice. I'm just sitting here, like, reading all of this going like, nothing like a nice hoggy ice surface.
I'm just imagining, like, Nathan Chen quadding on hog's lard.
Can that? I petitioned this to be a new thing. When the ice quality is really bad at a competition, we should all just go, should have used more hog.
Please.
I think it'd work. I think it would catch on, okay?
Get Gavin to do a banner for IDF.
Add more hog. Add more hog. Bring back the hog's lot. 2K19.
2022 Olympics.
Listen, skating's missing something. That something is hog's lot on the ice.
That will fix the eye issue.
That should be the new event each season where it's like a kind of world team trophy, but it's like just a casual competition at the end of the season, but instead of skating on normal ice, they skate on this fake ice with the hog's lard on it. I'd pay to watch that competition.
Junior Synchro Worlds is in the UK. I think we know what needs to happen.
Well, there you go. You know what to do. But yeah, on June 8th, 1844, the first artificial ice rink opened in London, and everyone thought it was a massive success. And in fact, even England's Prince Albert visited it.
God.
And was so taken with like the ice rink that apparently he had begun to like inquire about purchasing one for like one of his own estates.
I'm just imagining Buckingham Palace having an ice rink in the winter.
And then, like, the newspaper that was reporting this, they said, it is not improbable that a frozen lake will become as general to the mansions of the affluent as an orchard or a fish pond. So, you know, that's pretty big statement right there. So, you know, by 10 years' time, every fancy person will have a rink in their backyard made of pig fat and metal. And I have got some very exciting news for you, Neve.
Yes.
I have some text from a poster for the Glaciarium.
Please.
I'm reading this directly from the poster that was advertising the rink. And obviously I need to put on like an old-timey voice and like
of course
put some effects over it so it sounds like I'm like speaking on old radio. Okay. So here we go. This is what the poster says.
The proprietor of the glaciarium feels it in his duty to apprise the public that the metropolis will assuredly be visited on Thursday, the 25th of January, 1844, with the most extraordinary thaw ever witnessed in this country or any other, and he therefore takes the earliest opportunity of awakening the public to the pending calamity, and thus prevent disappointment to those who have not had good fortune to see this admitted wonder of novelties, the only one in the world. And although the beautiful lake is now fast frozen, the mountains, rocks, and trees covered with snow, and the glacier of ice down which the venturous skaters descend with astonishing rapidity is solid, yet all must, on the fast approaching dreaded 25th of January, dissolve, and like the basest fabric of a vision, leave not a wreck behind. Skaters and astonished skeptics are therefore invited, whilst the opportunity offers, to witness this wonderful discovery. A band of music will perform during the 4 days of the cattle show on the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th of December, and in the evening, the usual promenade musicale, led by Mr. A. Sedgwick. For the accommodation of the visitors, there will be an entrance from the cattle show to the artificial ice.
And thus ends the poster from 1844, my dramatic reading of said poster.
All figure skating events should come with a promenade musicale and a cattle show.
Oh, I know, yeah. But the fact that they were advertising the fact that all of the like ice surfaces are gonna thaw in like late January, but that doesn't matter because we've got a fancy artificial ice rink that could go all year round. So you should maybe visit them before this calamitous thaw. Like in the transcript, I'll write it up exactly like how it is written in the poster, because they randomly capitalize different words, like calamity is just randomly capitalized in it. I'm like, it really makes for the good effects. It's like reading a really good Stan Twitter post.
Exactly.
And the whole thing is just, it's so good.
Stan Twitter was alive in the 18th century.
The fact that there is a cattle show right next to the artificial ice rink, I mean...
That's what you need at Worlds.
That's what you need.
If you're paying £2,000 for tickets, you need a cattle show.
And honestly, the direct entry into the ice right from the cattle show, I mean, so convenient. But actually, and there was also, like, they listed, like, the prices for admission on the bottom of the poster, and I think it was, for skating, it was, like, 1 shilling, which converted into today's money is about £3, which is a bargain.
That's good.
I know, right? Wish I could skate for that cheaply. Yeah. But yeah, like, the press kind of stopped reporting on the ice rink, like, around in the 1850s. It kind of just... all reports of it kind of dried up. And actually, there was an article in 1893 from James Digby, who was the founder of the National Skating Association of England. And he explained that, like, while the design of the rink, you know, kind of drew everyone's curiosity, at the end of the day, the ice wasn't as suitable as actual ice would have been for skating. He said that it felt firm under the foot, cut up somewhat like ice under the skates, but overtaxed the energies of the most robust in the art of disporting themselves on it. And apparently he also said that because the ice surface used hog's lard, apparently it smelled really bad.
Oh, God. Somehow I can imagine.
Nothing like a nice, sweaty pig rink just for your nice figure skating competition.
To wake you up in the mornings.
So yeah, the glaciarium kind of fell out of fashion, presumably because, you know, no one wanted to continue skating on that slippery, smelly lard ice. But it actually was revived in 1876 by a man named John Gamby, who actually brought something new to the table in terms of ice rinks. Actual ice.
Hey, who would have imagined?
Shocking. Who would have guessed? He actually created a set of pipes that contained coolant, which they used ammonia, which kept the natural ice on top of it intact. So this was the first kind of iteration of the same kind of processes they use today to make ice rinks. And after that, there was kind of a boom in construction for artificial ice rinks all over the world, because they're like, oh crap, this actually works. It's not smelly like a hog rink. This is a real rink with actual ice.
We're not using animal produce.
Yay!
A win for vegans worldwide.
Yes, all of the vegans in the Victorian era. Yes.
Vegans' first win.
But But yeah, they were built all over the world. There were even some in Australia, and then there was, to much fanfare, a couple of them opened in Paris. And according to a journalist for the New York Times, when the first of the rinks opened in Paris in May of 1876, this is a quote, "The place was crammed to suffocation, and yet thousands of ladies and gentlemen on foot and in carriages continued to arrive. With no way to enter through the doors, enterprising visitors began to climb the scaffolding outside the rink, then leapt in through the windows. Meanwhile, crowds below persisted in besieging the doors. At times there was a fearful crush, and ladies were carried fainting out of the crowd. Many persons had their arms and legs injured," which is honestly that kind of hype we need in figure skating nowadays.
I mean, like, stuff like that's happened in football.
Just imagining the fact that everyone's like, it's the opening night of this ice rink, we must all go to it, it's the newest craze, the newest fad, we must all go to see it, but it looks like everyone else in Paris had the same idea. Whatever shall we do? Well, we're going to climb through the window, of course!
You think there'd be more exciting things to do in Paris?
Nah. It's a new rink. It's, fancy. It's May. It's nearly summer, so we must go see this ice.
It's not made out of hog's lard.
And it's not made out of hog's lard. Thank God for that. But apparently this kind of mania surrounding, like, ice rinks wasn't kind of taken up everywhere. Apparently, like, skaters in the US were particularly against the building of artificial ice rinks. In 1846, this is before the ammonia-chilled ice rinks were created, during the hog's lard period of ice rinks.
Oh, God.
There was a US skater, wrote an editorial for a magazine, and he said, "If shut up within the enclosures of the Rotunda of London, where the artificial skating pond was originally formed, we should hardly expect a person to experience the same enjoyment which is found on one of our American rivers or lakes." They were very much like, yes, skating outside and outdoors, just surrounded by nature, that's the real American way of skating.
Listen, America, just because you're bitter that England controlled you for a while.
I mean, if I saw the hog's lard rinks and I had some nice lakes, I would probably go, yeah, I'm cool out over here. This one doesn't smell. I think I'm just gonna be fine here. You guys, take a couple more. It's a really good try. Maybe take a couple more stabs at it. And when you come up with something that maybe isn't as smelly, then come back to me.
Well, yeah, but unlike Canada, England doesn't have minus 60-degree weather. We have to make do with the hogs.
We have to make do with the hogs. But yeah, after a while, after the ammonia-based cooling rinks started taking off in Europe, America got quite a lot of them. And by the end of the 19th century, the US would have actually quite hundreds of them that would be able to facilitate skating year-round. And obviously, the hog's lard rinks were nowhere to be seen past that time. It was firmly, modern day, well, not really, but olden day, good old ammonia-based cooling systems for our artificial rinks. And that's the story of how the first artificial ice rinks were created in figure skating.
I say we have like a 200-year throwback and make one last hog's lard rink.
Let's do it, honestly. Let's get a bunch of people together. We get a bunch of hogs. We get some salt. Certainly got plenty of salt.
And they'll have to meet-up.
The weirdest meetup ever. That's what we'll do. We'll just, all of us will gather all together and ITL will collectively make one last hog's lard ice skating rink.
Yes.
So, did you find that interesting, Neve?
Why was the first thing that I thought of hog's lard?
I mean, it was, it was a fat. It was slippery. You need to make things, try and simulate the feeling of ice being slippery.
To be fair, the first animal that comes to mind when I think of fat isn't a hog.
Might have just been the, most accessible thing for him to have gotten in, large quantities, because I can't see anyone, wanting it. It might have been weird, but, hey.
It did work.
Let's take your advice. Let's get a gelatin rink, make a big jelly rink.
Yes, please.
That'd be fun. But yes, that was the entire tale of the Victorian era ice rinks. Not quite as wild as some of the other stories we've had on Tales of the Blade, but I think that this article just made me laugh so much that I had to turn it into an episode. There couldn't have been a universe where I hadn't have joked about this. That was my conclusion that I came to.
I want to see the article.
Well, there'll be a link to it in the episode description of this episode and on the transcript as well. I'll link it there for anyone to read. There are also some accompanying pictures on the article, including a picture of the poster that I did the dramatic reading from. So yes, it's a very good read. I highly recommend it if people want to read further all about ice rinks.
For the beginnings of Stan Twitter grammar.
Exactly. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you guys all again for our next episode.
And if you ever come across any more funny topics that you would like to see us cover on Tales of the Blade, please let us know through all of our different contact sites, including our website, In the Low Podcast, Twitter, or Tumblr. You can also find us on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or basically anywhere else you can find your favourite podcasts.
If you enjoy the show and want to help support the team, please consider making a donation to us on our Ko-fi page. All of the donations we collect go directly back into the podcast in some form or another, whether that's through website hosting fees or improving our equipment in order to produce the podcast. And we'd really like to give a huge thank you to everyone who has supported us thus far. We really appreciate it.
You can also find all of the links to our social media pages, our Ko-fi, and so much more on the website.
If you're listening on iTunes, please consider leaving a rating and a review if you enjoyed the show. We really appreciate that. Thanks for listening. This has been Evie
and Neve.
See you soon, guys.
Bye. Don't skip on too many hogs.
Bring back hog rinks. Bring back hog rinks.
Back hog rinks. Bring back.